What does it truly mean to reclaim your identity, your humanity in your very land when centuries of, well, brutal oppression have relentlessly tried to strip them away?
Hmm.
Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into a profound transformation, one that isn't just about political shifts, but is intensely personal and psychological at its very core.
Yeah, it really is. It's about how individuals and, entire societies rebuild themselves after being shattered by colonial power.
And our guide for this illuminating, often challenging, but utterly essential journey is the groundbreaking work of Frantz Fanon, particularly his seminal book, The Wretched of the Earth.
Absolutely. And it's not just a historical text, is it? It's a profound exploration of what it means to be human under extreme duress and the deeply personal, often violent struggle for liberation.
Our mission today is to truly unpack Fanon's incredibly complex ideas with clarity and accessibility. We want to make these profound philosophical and psychological concepts understandable for anyone new to the topic, guiding you step by step through his insights.
Right. The aim is to truly grasp the immense human cost of oppression and the deeply personal as well as political struggle for freedom.
And we'll be drawing directly from the vivid details and powerful insights within Fanon's own words and observations.
Exactly.
So let's begin by understanding the man himself, Frantz Fanon, often considered the architect of anti-colonial thought.
Okay.
Born in Martinique, which was a French colony, Fanon was a remarkable individual, a psychiatrist, a philosopher, and importantly, a revolutionary. His life itself was, in many ways, a living testament to his unwavering dedication to liberation.
And what's truly unique about Fanon and what gives his work such incredible depth is his dual perspective, isn't it?
Exactly. He was both a medical professional observing the devastating human toll of colonialism in the psychiatric wards,
Yeah, seeing it firsthand.
and an active participant in the struggle through his direct involvement with the Algerian National Liberation Front, or FLN.
It's this lived experience that truly sets his theoretical work apart. His commitment was so profound that it shaped his very last days, offering a poignant, almost tragic glimpse into the totality of his dedication.
Mm-hmm.
Battling an aggressive form of leukemia, Fanon was incredibly reluctant, apparently, to be treated in that country of lynchers, a really stark reference to the United States and its history of racial violence.
Wow. Even facing death.
Yeah. Yet, tragically, his only viable chance for treatment was at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. And what's fascinating, and really speaks to the complex geopolitical landscape at the time, is that he was accompanied on this journey by a CIA case officer
A CIA officer.
provided by the American Embassy in Tunis. It's quite something.
Imagine the layers of irony there.
Yeah.
A revolutionary battling for liberation from Western powers, forced to seek aid from one of the very powers he critiqued.
It's incredibly poignant, and there's a detail that on his journey, changing planes in Rome, he met Jean-Paul Sartre, the renowned existentialist philosopher.
Who wrote the preface to The Wretched of the Earth, right?
Yeah, exactly, that powerful preface. But Fanon was so enfeebled by his illness at that point, he couldn't utter a single word.
Just couldn't speak.
No. And further illustrating his unwavering commitment, he was admitted to the hospital under a nom de guerre, Ibrahim Fanon.
Ibrahim Fanon.
Yeah, supposedly a Libyan name he'd assumed previously to enter a hospital in Rome after being wounded in Morocco during a mission for the FLN. It just underscores how deeply ingrained his revolutionary identity was.
Absolutely. It wasn't just a role he played, it was who he was.
Right up to the end, even as his body failed him, his fighting spirit never truly faded. A friend who was with him reported from his bedside that Fanon resisted his death minute by minute, literally clinging to life.
Wow.
It said that even his political opinions and deeply held beliefs, which defined his entire existence, turned into delirious fantasies as his mind raged against the dying of the light. An incredibly powerful image of a man consumed by his cause.
It really is. And this brings us to what Fanon observed as the core of the colonized person's being. This constant awareness and questioning. The renowned philosopher Simone de Beauvoir observed of Fanon, and by extension other members of colonized peoples, that they must be constantly aware of his position, his image. This isn't just about simple self-consciousness, is it?
No, not at all. It's a necessary, almost hyper-vigilance, a need to jealously protect his position, as she put it.
So what does that level of constant awareness mean for one's everyday life, for their very sense of self?
Well, it's exhausting, fundamentally. It's a profound state of being. Fanon spoke of the colonized having anxious antennae, always waiting to pick up the hostile signals of a racially divided world.
Anxious antenna, like constantly scanning.
Exactly. Imagine living every single moment, in every interaction, with an acute sensitivity to how you are perceived, to potential slights, to the subtle and overt forms of discrimination. It's this constant awareness, this ever-present threat from all sides, that fosters what he called a peculiar visceral intelligence dedicated to the survival of body and spirit.
Visceral intelligence, not academic then.
No, not learned in books. It's deeply intuitive, almost instinctual wisdom born out of an oppressive reality. It's about reading between the lines, anticipating danger, and finding ways to endure and resist in a world actively trying to diminish you.
That deep, visceral understanding, that constant questioning of reality, it truly does set the stage for how Fanon dissects colonialism. Because for him, it wasn't just a political system, it was a complete distortion of reality itself.
A distortion creating what he termed the Manichaean world.
And this personal commitment to questioning, it's perfectly encapsulated in his powerful, unfinished prayer, isn't it? Oh, my body, make of me always a man who questions.
Yeah, beautiful and powerful.
It feels like more than just a personal plea from him. It feels like an invitation, a challenge for all of us to constantly probe, to never just accept things at face value, especially when it comes to systems of power.
Absolutely. That call to question is foundational. And nowhere is that questioning more vital than in understanding what Fanon identified as the Manichaean world of colonialism.
Right. Where reality itself is cleaved into. Exactly.
So if we're going to truly understand Fanon, we have to get to grips with this concept of the Manichaean world, which is absolutely central to his entire analysis of colonialism.
Definitely.
Now, if you're new to the term, don't worry, it's actually simpler than it sounds, and it provides a crucial lens through which to view colonial societies.
Yeah, you can think of Manichaeanism as a stark, black and white worldview. Everything is rigidly divided into absolute opposing categories. It's either good or evil, light or darkness. There are absolutely no shades of gray in between.
Like a simple morality play.
Exactly. Or think of a classic superhero movie, maybe an older one, where the hero is purely good, the embodiment of virtue, and the villain is purely evil with no moral ambiguities whatsoever. That's the kind of simplistic, absolute framework we're talking about.
Okay. And Fanon argues that colonialism doesn't just apply this framework to ideas, but to entire populations, right? Precisely. In the colonial context, the colonizer embodies all that is good, civilized, and rational, while the colonized are cast as evil, savage, and irrational. It's a deliberate, calculated oversimplification.
Calculated for a purpose.
Oh, absolutely. Designed specifically to justify domination and exploitation. It creates a narrative where the colonizer is inherently superior and therefore has the right, maybe even the duty, to rule. It makes oppression seem natural.
And this Manichaean ideology isn't just abstract philosophy, it manifests physically.
Yes, through what Fanon calls compartmentalization. The colonial world, he observed, is quite literally a compartmentalized world. It's divided and segregated into distinct, unequal zones.
You see this most strikingly in the physical segregation of living spaces. You have native towns versus European towns, starkly separate and unequal.
Separate schools, different access to basic resources like water, electricity, healthcare. The division runs through everything.
And the colonized sector is vividly described by Fanon as a disreputable place inhabited by disreputable people. It's designed to be perceived as inferior, isn't it? A place where the rules of the civilized world don't apply.
Absolutely. It's painted as a famished sector, hungry for bread, meat, shoes, coal, and light. And the physical environment reflects this deprivation. Without space, he writes, people are piled one on top of the other, the shacks squeezed tightly together.
That physical compression, the deliberate overcrowding, it's a direct, tangible result of that Manichaean worldview.
Yeah, where the colonized are seen as less deserving of space, of dignity. It's a constant, visible reminder of their degraded status.
And in this stark, compartmentalized world, what happens to traditional institutions, like law or education?
They're systematically undermined or just replaced. Fanon starkly notes that the spokesperson for the colonizer and the regime of oppression is the police officer or the soldier.
So brute force replaces everything else.
Pretty much. There's no real appeal to reason, no real law as the colonized understand it, only the arbitrary application of force. If you have a problem, you don't go to a judge. You face a gun or a baton. It collapses all forms of social order into raw power.
This brings us to a really powerful and perhaps unsettling statement by Fanon, which encapsulates the economic and racial equation of colonialism.
Ah, yes, the one about infrastructure and superstructure.
Exactly. In the colonies, the economic infrastructure is also a superstructure. The cause is effect. You are rich because you are white because you are rich.
Mm-hmm. It's a profound statement. What he's arguing here is that race and economic status aren't just correlated, they are inextricably linked. They're fused into a single identity in the colonial context.
So it's not just that being white makes it easier to get rich.
No, it's more fundamental. Being white means being rich, and being rich means being white. It makes the power dynamic appear natural, unchangeable, almost biologically determined.
Like it's just the way things are.
Exactly. Rather than a constructed system of oppression, it masks the artificiality of it all.
That's a brilliant and disturbing idea. Wealth doesn't just correlate with whiteness, it defines it. A built-in justification.
Right. And this intertwining of economic and racial superiority is further solidified by what Fanon calls psychological weaponization. The colonizer's language itself becomes a tool of dehumanization.
How did language become such a potent weapon? Can you walk us through that?
Sure. The colonizer's language is designed to infantilize, to pathologize, to nullify the colonized. They use terms like hysterical masses, suggesting people are driven purely by irrational emotion.
Dismissing any legitimate grievances.
Precisely. They talk about blank faces, implying a lack of thought or individuality. Or they describe the colonized as having a vegetative existence, suggesting they are no more than plants, devoid of agency or consciousness.
Just objects, essentially.
Yes. This language strips the colonized of their voice and their very being. They are devoid of a public voice, their perspectives ignored, their grievances dismissed. They are constantly presumed guilty, always under suspicion.
Always feeling that curse or sword of Damocles hanging over them, as Fanon puts it, a constant threat.
Exactly. It's an immense psychological burden.
Just let that sink in for a moment. To be perpetually presumed guilty, to have your very existence described in these dehumanizing terms.
Interesting.
However, what's truly striking is Fanon's insistence that despite this overwhelming pressure, the colonized are dominated but not domesticated.
That's key.
They are made to feel inferior, but by no means convinced of his inferiority. This internal resistance, this refusal to truly believe in their own inferiority, even when the entire system is designed to force that belief upon them, that seems crucial.
It's absolutely crucial. It's a quiet, defiant spark that the colonizer can never quite extinguish. And that internal defiance is critical because it sets the stage for what Fanon, quite controversially for many, believes is necessary for true liberation.
Which is violence.
Violence.
And this is where Fanon's work becomes highly provocative and deeply challenging for many readers. He argues for violence as praxis, a psychoaffective path to liberation.
Yeah, it's probably the most debated aspect of his work.
He asserts that in this Manichaean world where rational dialogue between colonizer and colonized is utterly impossible because one side refuses to recognize the other's humanity, the colonizer understands only the language of violence.
So in his view, the colonizer are left with no other choice. He explains that under this relentless pressure, the colonizer's system eventually cracks up, and an implacable logic leads to decolonization.
And the colonized response?
It isn't a measured, rational confrontation of viewpoints, as Fanon says, but an impassioned claim that their world is fundamentally different. It's a total rejection of the colonizer's entire framework, a gut-level assertion of their distinct identity and reality.
So the violence isn't just random destruction.
No, in Fanon's framework, it's a direct, necessary response to a system built on and maintained by force. It's a mirroring almost.
And this leads us to his concept of psychoaffective transformation through violence. Can you unpack psychoaffective for us?
Sure. When we say psychoaffective, we're talking about the deep emotional and psychological core of a person, their feelings, their identity, their sense of self-worth. Fanon argues that violence isn't just a physical act of rebellion.
It's something deeper.
Yes, it's a profound psychological necessity for the colonized to reclaim their humanity, their selfhood, which has been systematically stripped away. It's an act of self-reconstitution, if you like.
Rebuilding the self through action.
Exactly. He describes violence as the perfect mediation. Fanon explicitly states the colonized man liberates himself in and through violence. He continues, the praxis enlightens the militant because it shows him the means and the end.
Praxis, that's action-oriented theory, right?
Right. So by engaging in violence against the colonizer, the colonized person actually comes to understand their own power, their own objective, and the path to freedom more clearly. It's not just about destroying, it's about becoming.
It's about reclaiming agency, breaking free from the psychological chains. Fanon vividly illustrates this radical idea, saying that killing a European is killing two birds with one stone, eliminating in one go oppressor and oppressed, leaving one man dead and the other man free.
It's a very stark image.
For the first time, the survivor feels a national soil under his feet. This is profoundly psychological, isn't it? As much as it is political.
Absolutely. It's about the colonized person purging the internalized oppressor, shedding the mental shackles that colonialism imposed, and feeling, maybe for the very first time, rooted in their own land, truly free in spirit.
It's a shocking statement for many, but Fanon presents it as a kind of psycho-spiritual cleansing, a necessary rupture.
Yes. And beyond the individual, violence, in Fanon's view, also serves a crucial collective purpose: to unify the people.
How so?
Well, colonialism by its very nature is separatist and regionalist, constantly reinforcing tribal divisions, creating distrust among different groups within the colonized population. It's the classic divide and conquer strategy.
Keep them fighting each other.
Exactly. Violence, however, by creating a common enemy and a shared struggle, unifies the people, Fanon argues. It helps to eliminate regionalism and tribalism. It forges a new national consciousness, a collective identity born out of shared suffering and resistance.
So the violence itself becomes a unifying force.
In his analysis, yes, a crucible forging unity.
To truly grasp this psycho-affective impact of colonialism and the struggle against it, we really need to look at Fanon's own clinical observations from the hospitals where he worked. These aren't just abstract theories.
No, they're grounded in harrowing reality. These aren't just individual pathologies, they are direct consequences of the colonial system itself, revealing the deep wounds inflicted on the human psyche. He saw these cases not as isolated incidents, but as symptoms of a sick society.
Let's talk about some of those cases. They're quite disturbing, but really illustrate his points.
They are. Take the deeply moving case of the tortured husband. This man suffered from severe impotence and depression because his wife had been raped by French soldiers. He felt she was dishonored, and this trauma manifested profoundly in his own physical and mental state.
The shame and impotence reflecting the powerlessness of his situation.
Precisely. His recovery, however, began not with traditional psychiatric interventions alone, but when he made the decision to take her back after the war, a decision that directly connected his personal healing and his wife's dignity to the future national liberation of Algeria.
So his personal recovery was tied to political hope.
Fanon observed exactly that. His ability to regain his virility was linked to his renewed political agency and hope for a liberated future. It powerfully illustrates how deeply intertwined the personal and the political are in Fanon's analysis. You can't separate them.
Then there's the absolutely heartbreaking case of the 13-year-old child killer.
Yes, incredibly tragic. After witnessing his own family members killed by French forces, he and a friend decided to kill a European in retaliation. But in a horrific twist, he ended up killing his friend instead.
Oh my God.
What's so chilling is his distorted perception of reality afterwards. He believed he was seen on the side of the French because he wasn't tortured by them.
Because he wasn't tortured.
Yes. It contrasted starkly with his desperate desire to be recognized as an enemy of the French and to endure suffering for the cause. He saw torture as proof of his loyalty to the revolution, a twisted form of validation.
That just highlights the agonizing, dehumanizing reality that colonialism and its violence can create, forcing individuals into unimaginable moral quandaries.
Exactly. The whole moral compass gets shattered. And it wasn't just the colonized who suffered psychological damage. Fanon also observed the French torturer.
Right, the police officer.
A police officer suffering from intense nightmares, chronic insomnia, profound anxiety. He was haunted by the screams of the Algerians he tortured, hearing them even when he was at home with his family. Couldn't escape them.
Well, he didn't want to stop, did he?
That's the truly disturbing part. He asked Fanon for help, not to stop torturing, but, and this is a quote, to torture Algerian patriots without having a guilty conscience, without any behavioral problems, and with a total peace of mind.
He wanted Fanon to help him become a better, more efficient torturer without the psychological side effects.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
It reveals the profound moral corrosion on the colonizer himself, the way the system demands a dehumanization that ultimately impacts the oppressor's own psyche. It damages everyone involved.
And the psychological toll extended even to the most innocent victims, the children.
Fanon observed child refugees exhibiting a range of severe symptoms. A deep phobia to noise, Sudden, loud sounds triggering intense fear.
Understandable, given the context of war.
Absolutely. Also, sadistic tendencies like compulsively piercing paper or biting their nails down to the quick, sporadic bedwetting, and a profound, desperate, great craving for calm and affection.
These aren't just isolated childhood traumas, they are direct, undeniable results of the constant terror, instability, and violence they experienced.
Direct consequences of the colonial war. Their play often mirrored the violence they witnessed, showing how deeply ingrained the conflict became in their young minds.
And similarly, there were the refugee women suffering from puerperal psychoses, severe mental disorders after childbirth.
Yes, living in dire poverty and permanent insecurity in refugee camps, often without proper sanitation or medical care. They experienced delusions of vague persecution and an overwhelming impression of imminent death for their newborn children.
It starkly connects the systemic violence, the deprivation, the constant fear.
To extreme maternal mental health crises. It shows how the colonial system attacked the very fabric of life, even in its most vulnerable moments. It wasn't just political, it was existential.
What's truly remarkable is how Fanon, as a psychiatrist, didn't just treat these individual symptoms. He radically deconstructed the prevailing colonial psychiatric theories of his time.
Yeah, the racist pseudoscience.
Exactly. Theories that absurdly claimed Algerians were hereditarily violent or suffered from frontal idleness, actually stating that the African uses his frontal lobes very little. Just blatant racism dressed up as science.
Fanon completely reinterprets this. He argues that this so-called Algerian criminality, which often manifested as Algerians attacking each other for petty reasons, internal disputes.
Violence turned inward.
Precisely. He says it's not innate or hereditary at all. Instead, it is a direct consequence of the colonial situation and the immense internalized rage it produces. When direct resistance against the powerful colonizer is impossible or too dangerous, this repressed rage, this bottled-up fury and frustration, wreaks havoc on the oppressed themselves.
Leading to devastating fratricidal struggles within their own communities.
Yes, the violence becomes misdirected. It's a symptom of an unbearable external pressure, not some inherent flaw.
He powerfully asserts that for many, their sole obsession is the need to fill that ever-shrinking stomach in a system that actively denies them basic human needs and dignity.
So it isn't criminality in a traditional sense, motivated by greed or malice. It's often a desperate fight for survival, a lashing out born of extreme deprivation and internalized violence within an impossible context.
It shows how the colonial system itself greeds the very behaviors it then condemns.
Creating a vicious cycle of self-destruction that masks the true source of the problem, the colonial system itself.
So with formal independence achieved, one might logically think the struggle is over, the deep wounds can finally begin to heal.
You'd hope so.
But Fanon, with characteristic prescience, warns of the unfinished revolution and the significant, often devastating challenges that emerge post-independence.
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches here.
He introduces the critical concept of the phony bourgeoisie and describes this as a profound betrayal of the revolution's ideals. Who are they?
This new class, the national bourgeoisie, typically composed of intellectuals, traders, professionals, they often step into the power vacuum, taking over the positions once held by the colonizers. But Fanon is profoundly critical of them.
Why? What's wrong with them taking over?
He argues that this bourgeoisie is not geared to production, invention, creation, or work. They lack the vision and the drive to build a truly independent and prosperous nation. Instead, they focus on intermediary activities, networking, scheming, acting as middlemen.
Like managers, not builders.
Exactly. He characterizes them as having the psychology of a businessman, not that of a captain of industry. They prioritize quick profit and personal gain over long-term national development and genuine productive enterprise.
And you really see this in their economic exploitation and relentless self-enrichment.
Oh, absolutely. Fanon observes that they hoard their savings, often depositing their profits in foreign banks, rather than investing them back into the national economy.
Capital flight, basically.
Yes. They invest in ostentatious goods, like chromium-plated American cars and luxurious villas for prestige, while simultaneously intensifying the exploitation of workers, often in newly nationalized industries.
And what's truly insidious is that they justify all of this massive accumulation of personal wealth, in the name of national interest.
We're building the nation, they say, while lining their pockets. This leads to them effectively reinforcing colonial patterns rather than breaking free from them.
How so?
They demand a colossal effort from the population, calling for sacrifice, hard work, patience from the masses, but they themselves refuse to take any risks or make genuine investments in the country's future.
And the state itself.
The new state's budget often becomes heavily reliant on foreign loans and donations, often from the very former colonial powers. This creates what Fanon terms a neo-colonialist system.
Neocolonialism, so colonialism by other means.
Essentially, yes. The former colonial power still exerts significant economic and political control, even without direct military occupation. And the masses, who fought and sacrificed for true liberation, feel an unspeakable treason by their new leaders, a deep sense of betrayal.
It's a tragic repeating cycle, isn't it? This post-independence betrayal often leads directly to the erosion of national unity.
Yes, tribalism and regionalism reemerge, often replacing the initial solidarity forged during the independence struggle. That beautiful, ambitious dream of African unity, which was so strong during the anti-colonial movements, often crumbles under the weight of these internal divisions.
The unity breaks down.
Indeed. What was once a unifying national identity gives way to narrow regionalisms within the same national reality, and sometimes even the most heinous and virulent type of chauvinism, an aggressive loyalty to one's own group, hostile to others.
And the racism, does that disappear?
Tragically, no. What's particularly disturbing is how this new national bourgeoisie, having internalized and assimilated the most despicable aspects of the colonizers' racism, then turns that racism against other Africans.
So, black people discriminating against other black people.
Yes. Fanon gives examples. Dahomians facing prejudice in Ivory Coast, Sudanese in Senegal, or internal conflicts erupting between different religious groups, like Christians versus Muslims. It's not liberation. It becomes, as Fanon calls it, a defensive racism, a racism based on fear, perpetuating the very divisions the colonizers exploited.
It's almost like that analogy you hear sometimes, a team that just won a championship after years of struggle, but then instead of building on that unity, the star players start fighting among themselves for individual glory.
That's a good analogy.
They blame each other for minor differences, and tragically, they begin repeating the old divisive strategies of their former opponent, the very force they united against.
The unity achieved through shared struggle is undone by internal divisions, often fueled by the very people who should be safeguarding it.
And then there's the problematic role of the leader and the political party.
Right. They often act as a screen, Fanon says, rather than a true instrument of the people.
A scream? How?
The leader, who might have once been a heroic moral force embodying the people's aspirations during the struggle, can transform into what Fanon bitterly calls the CEO of the company of profiteers.
Using their revolutionary credentials as cover.
Exactly. This leader uses their past image to pacify the people, to keep them quiet and compliant, thereby masking the bourgeoisie's greed and continued exploitation.
And the political party itself.
Instead of being an instrument in the hands of the people, it becomes a screen between the masses and the leadership. Its primary function shifts from empowering the people to monitoring the masses through what effectively becomes a dictatorship.
So control, not liberation.
Control. The initial revolutionary fervor dissipates, and the masses, still hungry, still living in poverty, slowly realize their lives haven't fundamentally changed. They experience the bitter truth that the police commissioners, now Africans, are not particularly reassuring.
The face of oppression has changed, but the reality remains the same.
Very much the same in many cases.
Fanon, however, doesn't leave us in despair. He doesn't just diagnose the problem. He insists there's a path forward.
No, he's always looking towards liberation, true liberation.
And he insists it requires far more than just waving a new flag or changing the skin color of the rulers. It demands a fundamental shift from narrow nationalism to a much broader social and political consciousness.
Absolutely. The core issue, he argues, is the need for a redistribution of wealth, and not just internally, but on a global scale.
How does he frame that globally?
He makes a profoundly powerful and often uncomfortable point, that Europe's immense wealth was built on the sweat and corpses of blacks, Arabs, Indians, and Asians. It's a direct result of colonial exploitation.
So aid isn't charity.
Exactly. Therefore, any aid or development assistance from former colonial powers should not be seen as charity or benevolence, but as just reparation, a moral obligation.
That radically redefines the entire conversation around international development, doesn't it? Transforms it from a philanthropic gesture into a form of historical repayment.
It really does. And paramount to this path forward is what Fanon calls the politicization of the masses. This is the bedrock of true liberation.
What does politicization mean for Fanon? It's not just voting, is it?
No, much deeper than that. It means opening up the mind, awakening the mind, and introducing it to the world. It's about empowering the masses to understand their own situation, to grasp the mechanisms of power.
To see how things really work.
Yes, and crucially, to realize that everything depends on them, that they are the demiurge, the creator of their own destiny, and that the magic lies in their hands and their hands alone. It's a call to active participation and self-determination for every single individual.
Not waiting for leaders to save them.
Not at all. They have the power themselves.
And this politicization, Fanon argues, inherently requires decentralization and shared responsibility.
Yes. True politicization means actively involving the people in decision-making at every level, even if it takes longer and is more complicated. He states that the search for truth in local situations is the responsibility of the community.
So solutions from the ground up.
Exactly. Not handed down by a centralized elite. And he's direct in saying there are no clean hands, no innocent bystanders in this process. Everyone must take responsibility for building the new nation. It's a call for a profound sense of collective agency and accountability.
And nationalism, where does that fit in? It was so important initially.
It was vital. Fanon views nationalism as a powerful and necessary force against the oppressor, essential for unity in the fight for independence. But, he cautions, it is not a political doctrine, it is not a program.
It's a tool, but not the end goal.
Precisely. It must quickly evolve into a deeper social and political consciousness. This transition is crucial for building a genuine humanism and a nation that is truly built by and for its people, transcending narrow, potentially destructive nationalist sentiments. Without this evolution, nationalism can become just another form of oppression, another cage.
It's striking, isn't it, how much of Fanon's analysis, written way back in 1961, decades ago, still resonates so powerfully with the global challenges we see today.
It really is. He truly was, in many ways, a prophet for our times, providing insights into power dynamics, economic disparities, the psychological impact of systemic injustices. They remain incredibly relevant.
And his influence spread far and wide, didn't it?
Indeed, it's widely noted, resonating across vastly different struggles for self-determination around the world. For instance, Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, co-founders of the Black Panthers, famously read The Wretched of the Earth in Oakland.
What did they find in it?
Foundational perspectives on neocolonialism, nationalism, self-defense, ideas that informed their movement. And even someone like Bobby Sands, the Irish Republican Army member, read Fanon's work in a Belfast prison while on hunger strike.
Wow. From Oakland to Belfast.
It demonstrates its far-reaching intellectual impact on diverse liberation movements. His ideas clearly spoke to fundamental human experiences of oppression.
Fanon delivers a particularly powerful challenge to Europe's moral authority, a critique that still echoes today.
Oh yes, he's scathing. He critiques a Europe that never stops talking of man, yet massacres him at every one of its street corners, at every corner of the world.
A profound hypocrisy.
Absolutely. And he urges former colonies not to simply imitate Europe's inhumanity or become a monster like the U.S., which he saw as having successfully caught up with Europe and amplified its flaws, particularly its racism, materialism, and tendency towards global dominance.
So don't just replicate the old models.
No. He's saying don't just mimic the oppressor, aspire to something genuinely new, create something better.
He calls for a new direction, arguing that the true mission of the so-called Third World is to endeavor to invent a man in full, something which Europe has been incapable of achieving.
What does that mean, invent a man in full?
It means focusing not merely on economic growth or productivity, as the West tends to do, but on a more holistic human development. He believes nations shouldn't be dragging man in directions which require genuine inspiration, but instead foster true human flourishing that transcends mere material accumulation. It's about the quality of human life, not just GDP.
A different set of values.
Exactly. He envisioned a collective endeavor, a common destiny among the underdeveloped masses, a global solidarity that would allow them to build this new humanity. The goal, in his view, is to escape the culture of conditionality imposed by global powers.
Where aid and development come with strings attached, perpetuating dependence.
Right, and to break free from the dialectic of their own system, meaning the inherited colonial mindset and structures. It's about forging something truly new, authentic, and human-centered, rather than just replicating old, flawed models.
Which leads us directly to Fanon's ongoing call to action and relentless questioning. He emphasizes that the struggle goes on. It's never truly finished.
Liberation isn't a destination you arrive at.
No, it's a continuous fight against poverty, against illiteracy, against stunted consciousness, against any form of oppression that prevents true human flourishing. His work powerfully reinforces that liberation is not a singular event, a mere change of government.
It's a
A
process.
continuous active process requiring constant vigilance against both external colonial pressures and, crucially, internal forms of oppression that can emerge post-independence. It's an endless journey towards genuine human dignity.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, we've journeyed through the remarkable life of Frantz Fanon, explored his profound understanding of the Manichaean world of colonialism,
Wrestled with the complex and often controversial role of violence as a psycho-effective tool for liberation.
and examined the critical challenges faced by newly independent nations as they navigate the treacherous path to true freedom.
We've seen how Fanon's unwavering call for genuine social and political consciousness remains a guiding star for understanding liberation struggles, both then and now,
His work powerfully asks us to look beyond the surface, doesn't it? To consider the often unseen psychological and emotional costs of systemic oppression.
and to question who truly benefits from existing systems of power, even those that appear benign or natural.
Fanon believed that each generation must discover its mission. So, a final thought for you, our listeners. For us, in our current global context, what unseen aspects of historical oppression or systemic injustice do we need to confront and understand?
Particularly those that manifest, as Fanon highlighted, in the psycho-affective realm of individuals and communities. How might those historical echoes be shaping our present, perhaps in ways we don't immediately recognize?
Something to reflect on.
Definitely. We encourage you to reflect on these powerful ideas and perhaps continue your own deep dive into the complex history and ongoing challenges of liberation and human dignity. Fanon certainly gives us a lot to think about.